The red lights flashed across the bridge of the last human warship as Admiral Kim To-ho stared out at the enemy fleet surrounding them. The Defiance had been humanity's pride once, but now it looked like a tiny insect next to the massive Zephyrian ships that filled the darkness of space. "Sir, they're sending another message," said Lieutenant Park So-young from her station. Her hand shook as she worked the controls. At 23, she had never seen anything but war, and now she was seeing its end. Tae-ho nodded slowly. He was 55 years old and had been fighting these lizard-like aliens for most of his adult life. His black hair was now streaked with gray, and deep lines marked his face. He had won many battles, but today he would have to do something no human admiral had ever done before. The main screen lit up, showing the scaled face of General Krax. The Zephyrian's yellow eyes looked cold and empty, like a snake's. His people had been conquering other worlds for thousands of years, and humans were just the latest species to fall before them. Admiral Kim Krax said in his harsh voice, "Your resistance is over. You have 1 hour to surrender, or we will destroy every human world in the galaxy." Tae-ho felt the weight of 8 billion human lives on his shoulders. Behind him, his bridge. Crew waited for his answer. Commander Lee Han-zal, his oldest friend, stood ready to fight to the death. Captain Choi Mina, who had held the line at 3 different battles, gripped her weapon. They were all good people, and they all knew what surrender meant. "What are your terms?" Tae-ho asked, though he already knew the answer would be terrible. "Complete surrender. Your fleets will be destroyed, your weapons will be taken. Your people will work for us. You will obey our laws and serve our empire." Krax's translated words came through the speakers like a death sentence. The bridge fell silent, except for the soft beeping of damaged systems. Several crew members looked down at their hands. Others stared at the screen with hatred in their eyes. Everyone knew that accepting these terms meant the end of human freedom. "And if we refuse?" Tae-ho asked. "Then we will turn your homeworld into ash. We will hunt down every human ship, every human colony, every human child. You will be extinct." Within 1 year, Krax's voice carried no emotion, just cold fact. Tae-ho closed his eyes for a moment. He thought about his daughter, who lived on Earth with her children. He thought about the millions of families scattered across human space, all waiting to hear their fate. He thought about the young soldiers who had died fighting for their freedom, and the old veterans who had hoped to see victory before they died. "I need time to think," he said finally. 1 hour, Krax replied, and the screen went black. As soon as the transmission ended, the bridge erupted in angry voices. "We can't surrender," said Lee Han-zal. "We're humans. We fight." "With what?" asked Choi Mina bitterly. "We have 12 ships left. They have 12,000. Our colonies are defenseless. Our industrial worlds are gone. And we die fighting," Han-zal shot back. "At least our children will know we didn't give up." "Our children will be dead," Tae-ho said quietly, and the argument stopped. "If we fight, they'll kill everyone. Every human in the galaxy will die. Is that what we want?" The crew looked at each other with pain in their eyes. They were warriors, trained to fight and die for their people. But sometimes the greatest courage was knowing when to stop fighting. "What about the outer colonies?" asked So-young. "The ones they haven't found yet?" Tae-ho's expression didn't change, but something flickered in his dark eyes. "The outer colonies are just stories now. Dreams of what might have been." But Han-zal, who had known Tae-ho for 30 years, caught that flicker. He remembered the classified meetings, the secret projects, the strange orders that had been given in the final months of the war. There had been whispers of something called Project Lazarus. But officially, it had been cancelled when the war turned against them. Sir Han-zal said carefully, "What about the deep space missions? The ones that launched before the siege of Centauri?" "All lost," Tae-ho replied, but his eyes said something different. "There's nothing left but empty space and broken dreams." Hour passed like a lifetime. When General Krax appeared on the screen again, his reptilian face showed satisfaction. He knew he had one. "Your answer, Admiral?" Tae-ho stepped forward, his back straight despite the weight of defeat. "I accept your terms. Humanity surrenders to the Zephyrian Empire." The words felt like poison in his mouth, but he said them clearly, so there could be no mistake. Around him, His crew members struggled not to cry. Some succeeded, others didn't. "Wise choice," Krax said. "Power down your weapons and prepare to be boarded. Your war is over." As the human ships shut down their systems and prepared for enemy boarding parties, Tejo sent one final message to the scattered human colonies. The message was simple. The long night begins. Hold fast to hope. Across human space, the colonies received the message and began shutting down their communications. One by one, the lights went out as Zephyrian forces moved in to claim their prize. The war that had raged for 50 years was finally over. Humanity had lost. The Zephyrians had won, at least that's what everyone believed. But in the darkness between the stars, something else was waiting. 6 months after the surrender, the city of New Sol looked nothing like it had before the war. Tall gray buildings now housed Zephyrian administrators, and armed guards patrolled every street. The humans who remained walked with their heads down. Moving quickly between their assigned work areas and living quarters, Commander Vex stood in the control center, overlooking the city, studying reports on her datapad. As a Zephyrian intelligence officer, she had overseen the occupation of many worlds. But something about the humans bothered her. They were too quiet, too organized, too ... empty. "The production numbers are excellent," reported Subcommander Rosk, his scales gleaming under the artificial lights. "The humans are meeting all their quotas. The mining operations are running smoothly." Vex nodded but didn't look up from her pad. "What about the population count?" "Still some discrepancies," Rask admitted. "We're missing about 30,000. People from the original surveys, it's probably hiding in the mountains or forests." "Show me the evacuation patterns again," Vex said. The main screen displayed a map of human space, with red dots showing abandoned settlements. Vex had studied this map for weeks, and the pattern worried her. The humans hadn't run away in panic like other conquered species. They had left in organized groups, taking specific equipment and supplies. "This doesn't look like people running scared," she muttered. "This looks like people following a plan." Down in the city, Park Dongwoo worked in the power plant that supplied energy to the Zephyrian Administrative District. To his alien supervisors, he was just another human technician doing his job. They didn't know that he had been one of Korea's top engineers before the war, or that he was carefully sabotaging their equipment. "Human work faster," barked the Zephyrian guard. "This reactor needs to be online by sunset," Sir Dongwoo replied in broken standard, the common language used throughout the galaxy. He kept his head down and continued working, but his hands moved with practiced skill. The adjustments he made would cause the reactor to fail in exactly 3 months. But the failure would look like normal wear and tear. After his shift, Dongwoo met with other workers in the underground tunnels beneath the city. They spoke in whispers, using Korean words that the Zephyrian listening devices couldn't translate quickly enough to understand. "The frequency modulators are ready," reported Kim Yujin, an electrical engineer who now cleaned floors in the Zephyrian headquarters. "I've been slowly removing components from their communication system." Good Dongwoo nodded. "What about the manufacturing data?" "Copied and deleted," said Song Ji-woo, who worked in the recycling center. "The aliens think they have all our technical information, but they're missing the most important parts." The humans had been playing a careful game for months. They acted defeated and submissive, but they were systematically stealing their own technology. Every day, small but crucial components disappeared from factories and laboratories. The Zephyrians cataloged what they found, but they didn't realize that the humans were showing them only simple, outdated designs. Meanwhile, Commander Vex continued her investigation. She had found abandoned research facilities with signs of hasty evacuation. But the evacuations looked too organized to be panic responses. Equipment had been carefully dismantled, data had been selectively deleted, and supplies had been removed in logical patterns. "Sub-Commander," she called to Rask, "I want a full investigation of all human industrial facilities. Something is wrong here." "Ma'am, General Krax has already approved the current security measures. The humans are completely under our control." "Are they?" Vex pulled up another display. "Look at this." Before the war, human industrial capacity was much higher than what we're seeing now. Where did all their manufacturing equipment go? Rosk shrugged. Destroyed in the fighting, probably. No, Vex said firmly. The battle reports don't match the missing equipment. Entire factories seem to have vanished without any record of destruction. What Vex didn't know was that many of the missing humans were still alive and working. Dr. Lim Hai-jin, who was officially listed as killed in a bombing raid, was actually hiding in the old subway tunnels beneath New Seoul. She met regularly with other scientists and engineers who had supposedly died during the war. The signal from the Outer Rim is getting stronger, she reported to her small group. Admiral Kim's people are ahead of schedule. What about the sabotage operations? Asked Dr. Oh Myung-soo, a former weapons designer who now worked in the colonies. Waste management system. Phase 2 is complete, Hai-jin confirmed. We've been installing our modified components in their systems for months. When we activate the shutdown codes, their entire network will collapse. The group exchanged quiet smiles. They were the ghosts of humanity's defeat, officially dead, but actually preparing for something the Zephyrians couldn't imagine. Back in the control center, Vex finally convinced General Krax to take her concerns seriously. The massive Zephyrian commander listened to her report with growing anger. You're telling me that these primitive humans have been conducting secret operations under our noses? He hissed. The evidence is clear, General. The missing population. The organized evacuations, the equipment disappearances, it's all connected. The humans are planning something. Krax's yellow eyes narrowed to slits. Then we'll crush whatever remains of their resistance. Order a complete sweep of all human territories. I want every cave, every tunnel, every hiding place searched. As Zephyrian forces began their massive search operation, they had no idea that their real enemy wasn't hiding in caves or tunnels on occupied worlds. The true threat was building strength in the empty darkness between galaxies, preparing weapons and ships that would soon change everything. The occupation had been successful, but the occupied had been planning to. 2 years had passed since. The Zephyrians took control of human space, and Sub-Commander Rask was getting tired of the daily problem reports. Every morning brought the same kind of news: equipment failures, missing supply ships, and communication breakdowns. Another mining platform broke down in the Kepler sector, he reported to Commander Vex. The third one this month. And we lost contact with supply ship Alpha 9 near the Vega system. Vex looked up from her datapad, her scaled brow furrowing. What about the power grid failures on New Tokyo? Fixed, but it took 2 weeks to find replacement parts. The human-built components keep breaking down in ways our engineers don't understand. Each problem by itself seemed normal. Equipment broke, ships got lost, and power systems failed. These things happened in any large operation, but Vex had been keeping track of every incident, and when she looked at them all together, they formed a picture that made her very worried. Show me the map, she ordered. The holographic display filled the room, showing red dots scattered across human space. Each dot represented a failure, an accident, or a missing ship. To most observers, it looked random, but Vex had studied military patterns for 20 years. These aren't accidents, she said quietly. Someone is doing this on purpose. On the industrial world of New Busan, Yoon Seo-kujin worked in the geothermal power station that provided energy for the entire planet. His Zephyrian supervisors thought he was just another human technician. But before the war, he had designed the systems he now pretended to barely understand. The pressure readings in Reactor 4 are a little high, he reported to his supervisor in simple standard. Maybe I should adjust the control systems. Just keep it running, the alien replied, without looking up from his own work. We need full power for the mining operations. Seo-chin nodded and went back to his console. The adjustments he made looked like routine maintenance, but they were actually tiny changes that would cause major problems later. A valve calibration here, a timing delay there. Small modifications that would remain hidden until they cascaded into system-wide failures. In the abandoned subway tunnels beneath the city, Dr. Lim Hai-jin met with her secret team of scientists and engineers. They had been working underground for 2 years, literally and figuratively, preparing for a moment that was finally approaching. The communication network is ready, reported Dr. Oh Myung-soo. We've been installing our modified circuits in their systems for months. When we activate the shutdown signal, their entire command structure will go dark. What about the ships? Asked Kim Eugene, who worked in the orbital shipyard where Zephyrian vessels were repaired. Phase 3 is complete, she confirmed. Every ship that's been through our maintenance bays now has our special components. They look like standard parts, but they'll fail when we send the activation code. Dr. Lim smiled grimly.
How many?
Ships about 60% of their local fleet. The newer vessels from their home systems are still clean, but most of their occupation force is compromised. The team had been playing a dangerous game for 2 years. They acted like simple workers and technicians, but they were actually the most skilled scientists and engineers from the human military. Everyone believed they had died during the war, but they had actually been evacuated to hidden facilities, and then secretly returned as refugees. Meanwhile, Commander Vex was finally getting the attention of General Krax, the massive Zephyrian. Commander studied her reports with growing concern. "You're saying these humans have been conducting sabotage operations for 2 years?" he demanded. "The pattern is clear, General. The failures aren't random. Someone has been systematically weakening our infrastructure." Vex activated another display, and there's something else. "I've been studying the human evacuation data from the end of the war. The screen showed the movement patterns of human populations during the final months of the conflict. Most other species scattered randomly when they were defeated, but the humans had moved in organized groups with specific destinations. They didn't run away in panic," Vex explained. "They followed evacuation plans. But here's the strange part. Many of the evacuation ships never reached any known human colonies." "Where did they go?" Krax asked. "That's what worries me. Our deep space sensors show no signs of large human settlements in the nearby systems. It's like they just vanished." What neither Vex nor Krax knew was that the missing humans hadn't disappeared. They had gone much farther than anyone imagined. In the empty space between galaxies, far beyond the reach of any sensors, Admiral Kim Tae-ho stood on the bridge of a ship that made his old vessel look like a toy. "Admiral," reported Captain Park So-young, "all construction teams are ahead of schedule. The final phase of the fleet will be ready in 6 months." Tae-ho nodded as he studied the displays showing thousands of ships under construction. Each vessel was built from resources harvested in the galactic void, using technology that had been developed in secret for decades. "What about the sabotage teams?" he asked. "Dr. Lim's people are in position," confirmed Commander Lee Hansel. "When we give the signal, the Zephyrian occupation forces will find themselves fighting with broken weapons and dead communication systems." Back in occupied space, General Krax made his decision. "Order a full military sweep of all human territories. I want every facility searched, every worker questioned. If there's a resistance movement, we'll find it and crush it." As Zephyrian forces began their massive search operation, they had no idea that their real enemy was preparing to emerge from the darkness between stars. Armed with weapons and knowledge that would change the balance of power in the galaxy forever, the pattern was about to become clear to everyone. The search teams found it buried deep in the ice of Europa, one of Jupiter's moons. General Krax stood in the frozen chamber, his breath forming clouds in the cold air, as he stared at the massive holographic displays that still glowed with power. The facility was bigger than a city, carved into the moon's interior and hidden from all sensors. "How long has this been here?" he demanded. Commander Vex checked her scanner readings. "Based on the construction materials, at least 20 years. Maybe longer." The walls were covered with blueprints, construction schedules, and resource allocation charts. Everything was written in Korean, but the translation software quickly converted the text. What it revealed made Krax's blood run cold. "Project Lazarus," he read aloud. "Deep Space Colonization Initiative. Phase 1. Evacuation of core populations. Phase 2. Construction of generation ships. Phase 3. Military preparation." Vex moved to another display, her claws clicking on the control surface. "General, look at this. Population figures for 17 human worlds. They evacuated 2 billion people over 15 years. Impossible, Crax snarled. Our intelligence would have detected movement on that scale. They didn't move them through normal space, Vex explained, highlighting a series of coordinates on the star chart. They built launch facilities in the outer system, beyond our sensor range. Small ships, launched over many years, all heading for the same destination. The destination coordinates showed empty space far beyond the galactic rim. To most observers, it looked like nothing, just the cold darkness between galaxies. But the human records told a different story. They've been building out there for decades, Vex continued. Generation ships, manufacturing platforms, industrial facilities. Everything we thought we destroyed was just a fraction of their real capability. In the deepest part of the facility, they found the command center where the evacuation had been coordinated. The screens still showed the final evacuation schedules, logged just hours before the human surrender. Crax studied the data with growing horror. The surrender was planned, he realized. They let us win. Far beyond the galaxy's edge, in the cold emptiness between star systems, Admiral Kim Tae-ho stood on the bridge of his flagship. The new Defiance was 10 times larger than his old ship. It's built from materials harvested from rogue planets drifting in the void. Admiral, reported Captain Park So-young, our scouts confirmed that the Zephyrians have found the Europa facility. Tae-ho nodded. Good. Let them understand what they're facing. Status report on the fleet? All 9,000 ships are ready for deployment, confirmed Commander Lee Hunzal. The manufacturing platforms have exceeded all production targets. We have enough firepower to level every Zephyrian world twice over. But Tae-ho shook his head. We're not going to level their worlds. We're going to do something much worse. The main screen activated, showing a transmission from Dr. Lim Hai-jin in the occupied territories. She looked older and more tired than when she had supposedly died 2 years ago, but her eyes burned with purpose. Admiral, the Zephyrians have discovered our evacuation sites, she reported. General Crax knows about Lazarus. Perfect timing, Tae-ho replied. Are your teams ready? All sabotage protocols are in place. We've been installing our modified components in their systems for over 2 years. When we activate the shutdown codes, their entire infrastructure will collapse. On New Seoul, Park Dong-woo received the coded message through his work terminal. To any observer, it looked like a routine maintenance update, but he recognized the signal he had been waiting for. He sent similar messages to other human workers across the occupied territories. Phase 3 is beginning, he whispered in Korean to Kim Yoo-jin as they passed in the hallway. Tell the others. Within hours, the carefully placed sabotage devices began to activate. The Zephyrian command center on New Seoul went dark as its power systems failed. Communication networks collapsed as the modified circuits revealed their true purpose. Ships in orbit found their engines shutting down as the components they had trusted for years turned against them. General Crax watched his empire's infrastructure crumble in real time. The screens in his command center flickered and died one by one as the cascade of failures spread throughout Zephyrian space. How is this possible? He demanded. They've been planning this for decades, Vex replied, her voice filled with grudging admiration. Every piece of human technology we incorporated into our systems was designed to fail on command.
Nice.
They turned our own efficiency against us. The psychological impact was devastating. The Zephyrian Empire had built its identity on the belief that they were the galaxy's superior species, destined to rule over primitive races. The revelation that they had been systematically outmaneuvered by humans shattered their confidence. Sir, reported Sub-Commander Rosk, his voice shaking. Long-range sensors are detecting massive energy signatures beyond the galactic rim. Thousands of contacts, all heading in our direction. Crax turned to the display, watching as contact after contact appeared on the edge of sensor range. Each ship was larger than anything in the Zephyrian fleet, and there were more of them than seemed possible. The human fleet, he whispered. They're coming back. The species he had dismissed as primitive had spent decades preparing for this moment. While the Zephyrians believed they were ruling conquered territory, the humans had been building the most powerful fleet in galactic history. All forces fall back to the core worlds, Crax ordered. Prepare for siege. As the Zephyrian Empire scrambled to defend against an enemy they had never truly understood, the human fleet emerged from the darkness between stars, ready to reclaim their place in the galaxy and teach their former conquerors the true meaning of strategic patience. The war they thought they had won was about to begin. The human fleet appeared like a storm from the empty darkness, their ships spreading across the star systems like drops of black ink in water. Admiral Kim Tae-ho stood on the bridge of the New Defiance, watching as 9,000 vessels took their positions around the Zephyrian core worlds. But what happened next surprised everyone. "Admiral," reported Captain Park So-young, the Zephyrion. "Home fleet is moving to intercept. They're preparing for battle." "Signal all ships," Tae-ho said calmly. "Maintain distance. Do not engage their military forces. Begin Bombardment Protocol Alpha." The Zephyrian commanders expected massive explosions, energy beams that could crack planets, or kinetic weapons that could destroy entire cities. Instead, they watched in confusion as the human ships began targeting something completely different. On the bridge of the Zephyrian flagship, General Krax stared at the tactical display. "What are they doing? Why aren't they attacking our ships?" His tactical officer reported, "They're destroying trade routes, communication hubs, and supply stations. They're not targeting military installations at all." The human strategy was simple but devastating. Instead of trying to destroy the Zephyrian military, they were dismantling everything that made the Empire work. Hyperspace beacons that allowed faster-than-light travel were systematically destroyed. Manufacturing centers found their supply lines cut. Communication networks that connected thousands of worlds went silent. "They're not fighting a war," Commander Vex realized as she watched the reports pour in. "They're conducting surgery. They're taking apart our entire civilization piece by piece." The psychological impact was immediate and terrifying. The Zephyrian Empire had ruled the galaxy for centuries by maintaining absolute control over trade, communication, and transportation.
Ow.
Entire sectors were being isolated from the rest of the Empire. Dr. Lim Hee-jin, coordinating from her hidden facility beneath New Seoul, activated the second phase of the attack. "All teams initiate final protocols. Let's show them what we've been building into their systems." Across the occupied territories, the sabotage devices that had been carefully placed over 2 years activated simultaneously. Power grids failed in cascading patterns. Automated systems turned against their operators. Military bases found their own equipment refusing to function. Park Dong-woo, still working in the New Seoul power plant, watched with satisfaction as the reactor he had been sabotaging finally shut down completely. The Zephyrian guards ran around in panic as their control systems failed, but Dong-woo simply walked away. His job was done. "The manufacturing protocols are failing," Kim Yoo-jin reported as she watched the Zephyrian shipyard grind to a halt. "Their production lines are destroying themselves." The modified components that the humans had secretly installed over 2 years were revealing their true purpose. Every piece of technology that the Zephyrians had trusted was turning against them. Even their most secure facilities found their systems compromised. "It's brilliant," Vex admitted to General Krax as they watched their empire collapse. "They spent decades planning this. Every surrender, every act of cooperation, every piece of technology they shared, it was all preparation for this moment." Third phase of the human attack was even more devastating. As the Zephyrian infrastructure crumbled, other species that had been conquered by the Empire began to rebel. The Centauri, who had been enslaved for 50 years, rose up against their overseers. The Rigel colonies declared independence. The Vega mining worlds expelled their Zephyrian administrators. "We're fighting rebellions on 37 worlds," Subcommander Rask reported, his voice filled with despair. "Our forces are spread too thin to maintain control." The empire that had seemed invincible was falling apart. The Zephyrians had built their power on the belief that they were superior to all other species. But the humans had proven that intelligence and patience could defeat brute force. Admiral Tae-ho received a transmission from General Debu, Krax after 6 months of systematic destruction. The once proud Zephyrian commander looked broken, his scales dull, and his movements slow. "Admiral Kim," Krax began, his voice barely above a whisper, I request terms for negotiation. The terms are simple, Tejo replied without emotion. Complete. Withdrawal from all occupied human worlds. Recognition of human independence. Reparations for the damage caused during your occupation, and the release of all conquered species. And if we refuse, Tejo's expression remained cold. Then we continue. We have the resources and patience to dismantle your empire completely. We can keep this up for decades if necessary. The choice is yours. The transmission ended, leaving Krax to face the impossible reality. The species he had dismissed as primitive had demonstrated a level of strategic thinking that surpassed anything the Zephyrians had ever encountered. 3 months later, the Zephyrian Empire signed the surrender documents. The treaties reduced them from a galactic power to a collection of isolated worlds. While humanity emerged as a major force in galactic politics, Admiral Kim Tejo stood on the observation deck of his flagship, watching as the last Zephyrian ships departed human space. Captain Park So-young joined him, her expression thoughtful. "Do you think they've learned their lesson?" she asked. "They've learned that conquest isn't permanent," Tejo replied, "and that sometimes the greatest threat comes from those who appear to be defeated." As the human fleet began returning to their colonies, carrying with them the freed populations and the promise of a new era, the galaxy settled into a different balance of power. The Zephyrian Empire had learned that underestimating humanity was a mistake they would never make again. The bombardment was over. Its lessons would echo through the stars for generations to come.